Welcome, everyone, to the Monterey Podcast. I'm looking forward to my conversation today with Dave Krahulec, who is the president at Horizon Signal Technologies. And I'm going to let him give a brief introduction into how he became the president at Horizon Signal Technologies and introduce himself. So welcome to the show, David. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well, thank you. So just a quick background is I basically got into portable traffic signals because I was involved in the portable traffic, the construction industry. So what happened was I was working for somebody who was distributing the Horizon portable traffic signal line in the Midwest. The guy that owned the company decided that he could do a better job, so he started reverse engineering the controller. At that point, I left the company because it wasn't a very ethical way to do it. And then the owner of Horizon Signal contacted me and wanted me to come to work for him. He has an interesting story. He came over to the U.S. after World War II. His family obviously fought on the German side, but there was nothing left. I think he was 8 or 9 years old. So his parents sent him over here to live with an uncle. Really a self-made guy, a really nice guy. And he ended up working in his uncle's restaurant and then decided he was going to start a business. That business was in the medical home healthcare industry. Went back to Germany, saw a portable traffic signal and said, boy, I should probably diversify. So that's how he started Horizon Signal and imported some things originally. And to this day, 40 years later, we're still doing a little bit of business with Germany. But in any event, he contacted me after I had left the other company and said, hey, why don't you come work for me? We'll figure if we can work something out. So we kind of worked on that a little bit. I repped his product for a while in the Midwest. He said, well, what would it take for you to come to work for me? And I said, well, here's what it would take. He said, that's great. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we had 3 people, a great idea, and very little sales. And he was a great guy, but he's one of these guys that today we're going to do this, tomorrow we're going to be over here, and then on Tuesday we're going in this direction. So finally he said, what would you do if this was your company? I said, well, let me write you a business plan. So I did. He said, okay, what's it going to take for you to implement this business plan? I said, what it's going to take is if you want me to do it, then you have to run everything through me and let me run the business. So he was kind enough to do that. We started growing. We started adding regional salespeople. We started developing the product and doing more and more. Eventually, I became a partner in the business. And at some point along that way, we sat down and said, look, it's time for us to sit down and put some agreement together. So that agreement basically was that if anything happened to him or I, the other one had an opportunity to buy out the stock. A few years led down the line, I had that opportunity. He had passed. And so I purchased all the stock. This was probably about 2020. I purchased the remaining portion of the stock, and I had been buying little pieces and chunks along the way. So then I ended up owning Horizon Signal, and we have 30 employees. We have facilities around the country. We're the industry leader in the area of portable traffic signals. We do sales, we do rentals. We've got a whole group of tech support people. Those type of things are typically recognized as the premier company when it comes to portable traffic signals. Does that help?
That's a fantastic summary of current events of how you came to where you are today. And I mean, congratulations from the beginning where you had an idea and then you had all these different directions and you had to hone it in and really focus, I think, and create that growth plan was, a key aspect to where you are today. So kudos to you for that. Why don't you kind of just give a brief description of some of the products or some of the services that you guys offer when we hear portable traffic signals? Like what does that mean?
Typically, portable traffic signals are used for temporary applications with a real focus on like work zones. So they're doing work on the road. You've seen those flaggers out there, stop, slow. What we do is we put up standard traffic signals. We've got several different versions, several different platforms, one of which is a trailer that weighs about 3,000 pounds, has batteries and solar, so it can run all construction season autonomously, wireless communication between the devices. So anything you see done on the road, if you want to add, for instance, a pedestrian crosswalk, you can add that with our system. If you want to add video cameras or motion sensors, anything you can do in the area of portable permanent traffic signals, we can do on a temporary platform. And it's very mobile. So one of the big problems used to be that we have to run power in whenever we put up a traffic signal in a temporary application. That can take longer to to do then the whole construction project in some cases. So we offer a real alternative to the traditional ways of controlling traffic within a work zone.
That's
And we've
fantastic.
got, like I said, several different platforms, several different things we're able to integrate into the system. So,
So,
sorry,
like,
go ahead.
oh, you're fine. So, what's your basic customer? Are these construction firms operating on roadways? Are they, project management firms? Like, who do you try to deal with, on a day-to-day basis?
A little bit of all of the above. What you have to remember is where our funding comes from for our industry. It's all typically government funded. Okay, so you have money that flows down from the federal government to the state departments of transportation, and they, along with the state money, funds the road work that you see out on the roadway. So where we come into play is once those contracts are designed and the projects are let to contractors who bid on it, then they would hire us as either a subcontractor or a rental house to come in and provide the signals. Now, 75% of our business is direct sales, so we'll sell our equipment, whether it be to a traffic control company that does we do everything in the area of traffic control, and 25% of our business is in rentals. We have a direct rental division that just rents direct to the customer or to the traffic control company, because these devices aren't cheap. So sometimes it's a cash flow issue and it's easier for the end user to rent it rather than purchase it. Or we're just going to need it on one project. We don't know if we're ever going to use it again, so we would just rather rent it. So we offer a lot of options. And on the rental option, you can do a turnkey rental. You can do, hey, I'm just going to want to rent it. I know how to use it. So it gives the end user a lot of options.
Well, that's great that you have that flexibility, and it's interesting that 75% are direct sales, which, like you said, I'm sure that these aren't cheap pieces of equipment, and 75% being direct sales, it has to be quite intriguing for you as the business owner, correct?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's the direct sales obviously are very important to us. The rentals take a lot more effort, a lot more work. We have probably $8 million worth of rental equipment that we have staged around the country. So we have facilities in Florida, in Alabama. We've got facilities in Tennessee, in Texas, in New Mexico, in Indiana, and out west. And what we do is we stock equipment at those locations and have crews that can go up and do the turnkey rental or deliver the product. So it's taken a while to get to that point. We run into people all the time in business that say, man, you're a lucky guy. And I say, yeah, that's great, but you weren't here when we had to run the Amex card to make payroll, right? So Everybody goes through bumps and bruises when it comes to starting and operating a business.
I've definitely heard that. That is not the first time that I've heard that. So I think, a reoccurring theme in my conversations has been, just keep going, right? Like, don't give up, like, have a positive attitude and keep pushing forward. You don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, just learn from them and keep progressing forward. So that's obviously a key thing that I hear over and over again from veteran business owners. So let's talk a little bit about some trends you're seeing. So where's the industry going? What's changing? What's new and exciting that you're seeing that you haven't experienced over your 25 plus years?
It's the acceleration of technology. Every year it seems like we're moving faster and faster, and we're always developing new products. We're always working with new technologies. About the time you finish something, it's time to restart because there's more opportunities when you do the redesign. So that's been critical to us. We spend a lot of money in R&D and product development. And what we do is we go to our customers, the departments of transportation, the FHWA, and say, tell us what your problems are and let us try and develop a solution. What we try not to do is develop a Me Too product. The other company over here, Brand X, is doing this. We want to do that same thing. What we really try and do is look at opportunities that people might not know about, or discuss fixes for problems people don't even know they have. So what we try and do is stay out ahead of the curve and develop products and technologies, and then by the time our competitors catch up to that, we're on to the next thing. And what you have to understand in our industry is because of the way things are designed, you can't necessarily get your product patented because DOTs and federal highway basically operate on products that have the guidelines or are required per the MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a federal document. And as such, they say, well, we don't want to put anything in the MUTCD guidelines that is a proprietary product. So you always have to be developing new products and new technologies, because as soon as you do, a year later, your competitors come out with, I got that too.
That seems like it's always keeping you on your toes, though. At least it doesn't get old. Every day is probably new and exciting. So that's got to bring a little bit of joy and keep you, you know, interested in every aspect of the R&D process. Correct?
Absolutely. And my part of the R&D project is always I'm the idea guy. I don't know necessarily how to build it, but here's an idea. And then we have a great team of people. And that's what it takes to run a business, a great team of people that are dedicated to the task and are just feel like it's more of a family. So we bring the ideas together and then we decide which direction we're going to go, and we have one person that basically manages all the R&D programs, not on the development side, but just keeping everything on track, which I found is a huge advantage. Is because when it's everybody's problem, it's nobody's problem, right? So the key is to find one person to manage the projects and keep pushing them forward, and that's made a huge difference in the timeline for getting products from the idea stage to, hey, now we're selling the product.
What's that, I guess, typical turnaround time if you had to average it out? Because it could be different from product to product, but let's try to put a
If I had to average it out, I would say 2 to 3 years from
Okay.
here's an idea, here's what we're going to do. Now we've done little things where we're just going to tweak something or we're going to add something, but a new product from ground up to we're taking it to market is 2 to 3 years. I think that's a good mean average.
So your head of R&D is pretty busy.
Yes.
And pretty involved, to say the least. So what
Yes.
challenges have you been seeing recently, or what's some of the biggest challenges for your business and your industry?
Now, I'll tell you this, our biggest challenge in my career was going through the whole COVID experience. That was the biggest challenge because you can imagine, we need pieces and parts to build our equipment. We need chips. Without a chip, we don't have a piece of equipment to sell. So we really had to get creative during that process. And the very frustrating part about that was you spend a lifetime developing a need for your product, and then once that hits, you can't supply the need because you can't get the pieces and parts. So we had to get very creative during that period, and we kind of got through it. Now what we're looking at is the technology side of it. We have a lot of good technical people inside. We have our own software engineer, we have a hardware engineer, but you still need outside people. So, and outside help on some of the projects. So finding those right partners is a real challenge. There's all of the things of you don't want to put somebody else in the business as your competitor. So you got to make sure you choose the right partners. You got to make sure you have the agreements in place. So you have to bring in your attorney and get all that stuff squared away. And then you may work with somebody for a year and find out you have the wrong partner. So that's a big part of it. Is just finding the right partners for the areas where you need some help in.
What's your process look like for vetting those types of people? Have you implemented anything to help alleviate that headache?
I mean, we do our best. We talk to other industry professionals that we know and see if they have some recommendations. We have meetings. We have a series of questions that we outline to make sure that we have the right partners. And I'm sure you've talked to enough private business owners that private equity is involved in everything these days, right? So you may be going through a process with a private company that is on board and we're going to do this, and then all of a sudden that company sold to private equity. Now they're backing up and saying, 3 to 5 years sounds great to get this thing really to a point where now it's something that we're out there selling and we're making money on. But our timeline's only 3 years. We really want to own this company 3 years and send it on to the next higher private equity group. So those kind of things, the stuff you don't see is the really frustrating part. If that makes sense.
Yep, understood. Anything else in terms of like the technological advances and the challenges as far as like implementing it into the machines and the traffic control systems that you're trying to put in place?
That part is not difficult. The issue is there's always going to be you have to understand there's always going to be a better way to do it. About the time you get it all figured out, there's a better chip. There's a better component. We can do this, but we couldn't do that. But what you have to do is understand that you have to have the product, you have to test the product, you have to put it out in field tests, so you can't skip parts of that process just because there's a new version of X, Y, and Z that came out. That's a big part of it too, is you have to vet everything, you have to test it, you have to make sure that it's going to work in a real world situation because I hate to say it, but if you have a problem with your traffic signal, somebody could die. So you want to make sure you don't run into that situation.
Yep. Completely understandable. Definitely a lot of risk on that side of things I could see, but that's good. The next thing I want to kind of talk about is obviously you've done a fantastic job of growing this business from the ground up, it sounds like. So, what are we looking for in terms of growth? Are we looking to grow? Are we, completely fine where we're at and we just want to maintain? What does that look like for you, Dave?
Well, you talk to enough people in business to know that you're either growing or you're going forward or you're going backward. There's no standing still in business. So as long as I'm involved, we're going to continue to grow, continue to develop new products, new technologies, better ideas, expand within our area of expertise. And that's important to me, is to make sure we stay in our lane, so to speak, and continue to grow in that direction. I've used that philosophy for a long time, and it seems to work very well for us. So right now we have a series of about 6 different projects that are in different stages of development, and my goal is always to have 3 or 4 going on, so that we continue to develop the next generation of the next generation of the next generation.
So you're doubling your goal right now. That's fantastic.
Yes, I like it. I don't know if everybody does, but yeah.
So
And we
if
have a great team. That makes a big difference.
That's huge. Absolutely having the right people in place. It makes a huge difference. So, in terms of growth, then, let's say if it sounds like what you're telling me is the way for your industry to grow is to always be on the edge of the new next thing and to constantly be innovating. Do you have any issues implementing or anything like that once, you get these projects to the point of, hey, we're ready to, put these to market and get them out there? Or is it just a frenzy once you actually get to that point?
There's a process by which you have to do that. I mentioned earlier about the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So you have to make sure, if in fact there's something in that those guidelines that govern what you're doing, that you meet that minimum expectation before you go to the State Department of Transportation and ask them to approve it. Now keep in mind, once you develop a product, now you have to take it to market. And in our industry, everything gets approved by the State Department of Transportation, but they won't look at a product until it meets those minimum guidelines of the MUTCD, right? So what we have to do, and we just developed a new work zone product, and what we had to do is now, it's not governed by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that is very, very helpful. But what we've had to do is go to several different state departments of transportation and say, we want to talk to you about this, see if it makes sense to you. We will give you this product to use on a project at no charge, with the understanding that after the project, you will write a report and give us a report on how it performed and how it affected traffic, whether it helped, whether you'd like to see something different, whether you have recommendations, what could we have done better. So we're doing that currently. We've done it with the state of Michigan. We just met with the state of Oregon and the state of Idaho, and they're going to go ahead and do the same type of thing with the work zone product we developed. And then Tennessee wants to do the same thing. And then there was one other state, I think it was Florida. So we would like to get a total of 5 of those before we have enough data where we can tweak whatever we have to tweak and then take it to the rest of the state departments of transportation to try and get it implemented into projects. So that gives you an idea of the process.
So it sounds to me, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not potentially bringing in any income off of these new machines until all of the state departments approve it, and then you have the ability to sell.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily all the states, but as the states approve it, then we're able to go in there and sell it. So they may approve it and say, okay, now this kind of makes sense to us. We will start adding it to some projects where we feel it's appropriate. But they may be designing projects a year or two in advance too. So once you get to a point with the Department of Transportation that they say, yep, we like this, we want to go ahead and start using it, it may be another year or two before you're actually making money off that product. So think about a 2 to 3 year development process, maybe a year, 2 year working with the DOTs to gain approval, and then another year before implementation.
So what's funding
you're
all
really
of
working
this?
4 or 5 years in advance. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So is this all is that overhead that you're just carrying up until that
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a very
Now,
long lead time.
there is something called an R&D tax credit that helps you a little bit on development, but it certainly doesn't cover your cost. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I could understand that. So your end user is then the Department of State of Transportation mainly for a majority of your products.
Yeah, that's where all the money flows from. The federal government and the state government all flows down through the contractor to us.
So I guess if you had a magic wand and you like wanted to just wave it and say, I wish like this could be fixed and help my business, out, what would that be?
If I had a magic wand, what I would say is let's take the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is governed by the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Control Devices and the FHWA, and let's figure out a process that you can move through that manual in a 2-year time window. Right now, it takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 10 years to get a product into that manual. That's just the process. And I think what you have to understand, and I'm part of the national committee that helps write the MUTCD, so I'm intimately involved in that process, and it still takes a long, long time to get through it. And there's a lot of issues there. Basically, they're working off of systems that were designed 30 years ago that haven't changed. What we have to do, we're talking about technology, what we have to do is embrace technology at that level and figure out how to use technology to get those products from here's a good idea to now it's approved for use on the roadway. Awesome. That's a lot, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, all good conversation. So I think the information you've provided has been great, and I think that it definitely, is going to hit home with a little bit of my audience. And obviously, I think the main thing is that you took the business and you really developed it and grew it and spread it and became an expert in your area of expertise. And, all the boards and everything that you're a part of, I think is accolades that you will always look back and be proud of. So congratulations on that, Dave. I think you gave me a lot of great information today. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Can I say one other thing? And that one other thing would be, we didn't really touch on it, but the value of mentoring the next generation of leaders. As a business leader, as an industry leader, we really have to always be looking at how we can give the next generation that leg up. I like to tell them, and I have people I mentor, and I basically say, I can't tell you exactly how to do everything, but I can tell you where I made my mistakes. So I think it's important for us as leaders to look at people who have what it takes, because you can see it, and figure out how to get them to the next level.
And I think that's one of the points of my podcast is I'm talking to all kinds of different business owners and getting a lot of their input as to how they were started, how they worked through all their challenges, how they grew to where they are today, how they're continuing to grow. And I hope that people who are able to find my channel are able to at least make some connections first and foremost, and potentially reach out if they're curious and this is an area that they might be interested in pursuing or getting involved in. So that's ultimately one of my goals. So that's great that you mentioned that you're willing and open to mentor people looking to potentially get into this or just have questions or anything like that. So thank you for that, Dave.
Thanks, Dominic.
All right, Dave. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I think it was great. And we'll see you on the next episode of Monterey Podcast.
Thanks.